Washington has already pumped trillions of dollars into the U.S. economy in both fiscal and monetary support, but some say that still isn't enough. To give us his read, we welcome now Douglas Holtz-Eakin, American Action Forum President and former Director of the Office of Management and Budget. So, Doug, welcome back. It's great to have you here. Before we turn to what might more need to be done, let's talk about what's already been done. I understand you were up on the Hill just this morning testifying about the effectiveness of what's been done. Tell us what you told the Senate.
I think if you take a look at the CARES Act, we did a lot for households, checks to individuals, pandemic unemployment insurance for the 40 million odd new claimants, and I think that's been quite successful. The April report on personal income said that disposable personal income rose at an annual rate of $2.1 trillion, in large part because government benefits rose at a rate of $3 trillion. The saving rate in that report was 33%, so people have cash, they're holding on to it, they're provisioned for the next couple of months. On the small business side, there's been a lot of complaints about the Paycheck Protection Program. Many of them are true. Despite that, it got over $530 billion out the door to small businesses, over 4 million loans in the space of a month, which is a pretty enormous accomplishment for a government program. The bad news is we set up provisions for large business lending, and they have done essentially nothing. The Main Street business facility is yet to be operational. The municipal liquidity facility, not a dime gone out yet. So I think the $500 billion sitting in the Treasury to support lending to states, localities, and mid-sized businesses, they're just missing in action, and that's what we need to do next.
So give us an overview there. It was $2 trillion all told, right? Roughly in the CARES Act?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah. So at $500 billion still hasn't been spent? Is that what you're saying?
$500 billion is just sitting in the Treasury. Of the money allocated to support lending, literally $1.8 billion has gone out.
Why?
So, good question. This is mystifying to me. The Federal Reserve has proven it can move quickly and on a large scale. Look at its balance sheet, open-ended provision of liquidity, zero rates. It can do that. The Treasury worked with the Small Business Association on the PPP, so it can move fast and get a lot out. So why did those two, in combination, go 2 months without successfully launching these facilities? I just don't understand it.
Well, you understand the government so terribly well. Is this a political issue?
I think it's a design issue. I think there's a legitimate concern on the part of the Federal Reserve that they not set up loan programs that lose money. That's in their charter. So the Treasury's job is to backstop the Fed, make sure the Fed is held harmless, and that $500 billion can be leveraged up into something that looks like, $3, $4, $5 trillion worth of additional lending. If they're too cautious with that, and the term sheets look to me to be too tight, people aren't going to take up those facilities when they're open, and they're still not open. So it could be just harder than I appreciate. It could be that they're being too cautious in the way they're approaching this, but through whatever circumstances, the money's just not going out.
What about the $1.5 trillion, if my arithmetic is right, that has more or less gone out? How effective has it been? You say it's gotten into people's pockets. The personal income's up, even if they're saving it rather than spending it. But is it having real effects on the real economy, on unemployment, on spending, on things like that?
I think this is a circumstance where this notion that you just write checks to people and let them go out and spend it and stimulate the economy is just missing the root problem. Mm-hmm. This is not a demand problem. This is a supply problem. We have shut down large amounts of the economy. Even as we try to open it up, it will be opened up as fast as people are comfortable going to work and businesses are comfortable opening their businesses and having people at work and having customers in them. And so I think the major challenges going forward are not going to be getting enough money into the economy. We did that. We maintained the liquidity. We held on to the infrastructure of a lot of businesses, and we kept a lot of people in their jobs. Now we're going to have to figure out how to operate successfully in the face of the virus. It's not gone. It's still out there. How do we run our businesses and conduct our economic affairs with it still present?
Is that a matter of money?
No, I don't think it's just a matter of money.
Yeah.
I mean, think of the restaurants. You got restaurants, they have really tiny kitchens. Is that going to work anymore? Or are we going to have bigger kitchens? What about the dining areas? You've got to spread things out. The business model that used to be successful now might not make it at the previous price point. So how do you sort of rethink, and economies do this coming out of recessions all the time, sort of move from one industry to another, get different employment patterns. But also in some cases, like a meatpacking facility, it is just money. How can we reconfigure it to operate safely in the future?
Did we make a mistake in retrospect by making the unemployment benefits so attractive? I mean, there are lots of stories about people can actually make more money being on unemployment than actually working. So that's sort of a perverse incentive, isn't it?
Looking back, it was the ideal policy if you wanted people to stay at home, not try to go to work, and not transmit the virus or catch it. Looking forward, it doesn't work. Our estimates are that 63% of American workers would make more on you and I than on their previous job. And that's just too big a hurdle. So Congress will have to do something with that. You know, you can't have a big bonus like that tied to staying out of work. You either continue to provide people a lot of money, just make it available if they also work, or you take this temporary policy and acknowledge that it had to go away at some point and, start phasing it down quickly.
Well, that's part of the question, because there's talk about extension, right, on the Democrat side now. So what you're suggesting is maybe you don't just let it fall off a cliff, but you really got to feather it down.
Yeah, I can see the concerns about a cliff, but I think the more important thing is to make sure that it's available for those who work so that we're not stopping people from going back to work, and we acknowledge it's a temporary policy and we start phasing it out. The only thing you don't want to do is extend it as it is. That's the mistake.
So what about the HEROES Act? I mean, because there's a Phase 4, as we know, that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, really wants through. Is she right in all or in part?
There are pieces of the HEROES Act that I think make perfect sense. There's a large amount in there that has nothing to do with recovery from a pandemic and really shouldn't make the cut. As you know, the response to this has been an enormous fiscal policy. It's moved the deficit from $1 trillion to something that will probably be $4 trillion before we're done. We're going to jump the national debt up to 100% of GDP. I'm in favor of doing all that as a response to the downdrafts, which has been historically large. But stay disciplined and don't do things that you don't need to do in these circumstances.
What about the state and local government part? There seems to be a broad consensus among Republican and Democratic governors that they really need some money.
Yeah, here's the tough part. So there are three different issues. Issue number one is states and localities had the brunt of the expenditure to deal with the health crisis. And since that was in everyone's interest, it's probably appropriate that the taxpayer pick that up. That's one set of funds. There's another set of funds which probably aren't appropriate, and that is existing structural problems in budgets. The poster child of this is bad pension plans in places like Illinois. And then there's the issue of lost revenue. When the businesses lost revenue, we said if you're a small business, we'll give you a grant. If you're a large business, we'll give you a loan. What do you do with the states?
Yeah, no kidding. No taxes coming in is the problem. Doug, it's always such a pleasure to have you with us. That's Douglas Holtz-Eakin of the American Action Forum. So that's going to do